ready to finally crack the code on a good night's sleep.
Who isn't?
We're diving into the Sleep Foundation's 20 tips for better sleep. And let me tell you, there's some seriously interesting stuff in here.
It's easy to get overwhelmed, though, right?
Yeah.
20 tips. Feels like a lot.
Exactly. So think of this deep dive like us giving you the cheat sheet.
We're cutting through the noise and highlighting the most fascinating and, more importantly, actionable advice from the article, so listeners can actually start seeing results.
Love it. Okay, so big picture for a sec. We all want to sleep better, but why is it so crucial? Beyond just, not feeling like a zombie.
It really is amazing what a good night's sleep does. It impacts literally everything.
No kidding.
I mean, mood, energy levels, even your long-term health.
Right.
It's all connected. And for people like our listeners, people who are all about learning new things, improving themselves,
Always up for a challenge.
well, good sleep. It's fuel for your brain. It directly affects how well you learn, how sharp you are.
I'm already convinced. So how do we actually make it happen? The article jumps right into creating that perfect sleep environment.
It's like setting the stage for sleep success, and this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Most people just think about a comfy mattress.
Yeah.
Right? But the article goes way deeper than that. Temperature, for example. Did you know there's an ideal temperature range for sleep?
Really? No way.
Between 65 and 68 degrees. Apparently, our bodies are pretty picky.
65 to 68. That's so specific. I'm now realizing my bedroom is like a sauna in comparison.
Well, there's a reason for it. Your brain, it's hardwired to respond to certain cues.
Cues.
Yeah, like when your body starts to cool down in the evening, that signals to your brain that it's time to start producing melatonin.
Melatonin, that's the sleep hormone, right?
Exactly.
So cooler room equals more melatonin equals better sleep. Okay, that makes sense.
And it's not just temperature. Light plays a huge role, too.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that.
Darkness. It's a huge EEQ for your brain. Tells it to get that melatonin flowing.
So being glued to our phones before bed is probably messing with that whole process.
Totally. And that's actually a big part of creating that sleep sanctuary we talked about, but we can dive into that a little bit later.
Sounds good. I do want to ask you about this whole 7-hour rule. I feel like we hear that all the time.
It's true. The article really stresses how important that is. And it's not just about the number of hours, but how it syncs up with your natural sleep cycles.
Sleep cycles.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize sleep isn't just one long thing. You go through these cycles throughout the night.
Oh, okay.
Lighter sleep, where it's easier to wake up, then deeper sleep, where your body's really repairing itself.
Makes sense.
And then, of course, you have REM sleep. That's where the dreaming happens.
Wow. So I'm out there sawing logs and all this is going on. That's wild.
It's actually pretty amazing. So these cycles, they take about 90 minutes to complete. And if you're only getting like 5-6 hours,
You're cutting those cycles short.
yeah, you're not giving your body enough time to go through those stages to really maximize your recovery.
So 7 to 9 hours. That's the sweet spot, huh? No more hitting the snooze button, I guess.
Probably for the best. And speaking of catching those Z's, I know you're a self-proclaimed nap enthusiast.
Yes, don't get me started. Sometimes they're amazing. Other times I wake up feeling worse. Any advice on that?
The article is surprisingly specific about naps.
Wow.
It actually recommends keeping them to about 20 minutes.
20 minutes, really?
Yeah, and aiming for the early afternoon.
Is there something magical about that time of day? Why so specific?
It all goes back to that circadian rhythm we were talking about.
Right, our body's internal clock.
Exactly. Turns out there's a natural dip in alertness that happens in the early afternoon for most people.
Oh, so like that 2 p.m. slump everyone feels.
Yes. Your body's basically giving you a little nudge like, hey, a quick recharge will be great about now.
Okay, so a well-timed nap is working with my natural rhythm, not against it.
Exactly. And those short strategic naps, they can actually boost your alertness, your mood, even your cognitive performance without messing up your sleep later.
Okay, I like the sound of that. Strategic napping, it is. Now, I got to ask about something else that tends to mess with my sleep.
What's that?
The elephant in the room, or on my nightstand, rather, my phone.
Ah, the digital detox struggle is real.
It really is. Especially in those quiet hours before bed, it's so tempting.
Well, and what's interesting is the article doesn't just tell you to ditch the devices. It explains exactly why that blue light from our screens is such a sleep saboteur.
Okay, yeah, I've heard about blue light, but why is it so bad? Something to do with melatonin, right?
Exactly. See, that blue light basically tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime.
Really? So even if it's the middle of the night?
Yep. And that suppresses melatonin production.
Ah, there it is.
Throws that whole sleep-wake cycle out of whack.
Exactly. It's like hitting the cancel button on your sleep routine.
So I could be scrolling through something totally mindless, not even feeling stimulated, but that blue light is still sending those stay-awake signals.
Exactly. And people think it's just about eye strain, but it's much deeper than that. You're not giving your brain a chance to wind down, to transition into that sleep mode.
Wow. I really had no idea it was so powerful.
It's one of those things that's so simple, but it makes a huge difference. And actually, speaking of simple but powerful, are you ready for one of the most surprising tips from the article? Hit me with it. Bring on the surprise.
All right, so we've talked about that whole sleep sanctuary idea, making your bedroom ideal for sleep, right? Well, this tip takes it a step further.
Okay, more extreme than the 65-degree thing. I'm intrigued.
They suggest reserving your bed for sleep and intimacy only.
Wait, seriously? Like no more reading in bed before I fall asleep?
No more late night snacking in bed, no catching up on work emails, no scrolling through social media.
Whoa, okay, that one threw me for a loop. No more late night reading in bed. I have to admit, I'm a little skeptical.
It does sound a little extreme at first, right? But there's a really interesting reason behind it.
Okay, I'm all ears. Why banish all those other activities from the bedroom?
Well, remember how we talked about your brain responding to cues?
Yeah, like the temperature thing and darkness signaling melatonin.
Exactly. So when you're constantly using your bed for all these other things,
Working, watching TV, scrolling on my phone.
guilty.
Right. Your brain is like, wait, what is this place? Is it for sleep? Is it for work? Is it for catching up on my Instagram feed?
So it's like my bedroom is having an identity crisis.
Exactly. You want to create a strong mental association. Bed equals sleep, not bed equals stress or bed equals endless to-do lists.
That makes a lot of sense. I can see how that would make it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep. Okay, I'm convinced. My bedroom is officially becoming a device-free zone. But speaking of sleep disruptors, I noticed the article also mentions something about getting enough sunlight during the day, which seems a little counterintuitive when we're talking about sleep.
It does seem a bit strange, right? But it goes back to that circadian rhythm we keep talking about, that internal clock that regulates your sleep-wake cycle. Right, our body's natural rhythm. And we've talked about how important it is to work with that, not against it,
Exactly. Sunlight, especially in the morning, it's like a signal to your body.
like a reset button.
Yes, it tells your body clock, hey, it's daytime, time to be awake and alert.
So even if I'm really not a morning person, getting a bit of sunshine could actually help me sleep better later that night.
Exactly. It's one of those small changes that can make a big difference. And speaking of small changes, the article also mentions keeping a sleep diary. Have you ever tried that?
The sleep diary. I'll be honest, it always seemed a bit older and tense. Like, who has time for that?
I know, right? But it doesn't have to be this big, complicated thing. It's more like becoming a sleep detective.
Ooh, a sleep detective. Okay, now you're talking my language.
Right. You're just paying attention to patterns, trying to notice any connections between how you're sleeping and what else is going on in your life.
So what kind of things would I even track?
It can be super simple. When did you go to bed? How long did it take you to fall asleep? Did
Yeah.
you wake up during the night? How did you feel when you woke up in the morning? Things like that.
So it's about noticing those little things, those patterns, and seeing how different factors might be playing a role in my sleep.
Exactly. And here's the best part. Once you start paying attention, you can start experimenting with different strategies.
That's a really empowering way to think about it. It's not about following some rigid set of rules, but about figuring out what works best for me.
That's exactly it. Personalized sleep optimization.
I love it. This has been so eye-opening. Honestly, I feel like I have a much better understanding of not only what to do for better sleep, but like the why behind it all, which is going to make me way more likely to stick with it.
That's what I like to hear. Sleep is so essential, and it's often the first thing we sacrifice when life gets busy. I'm hoping our listeners will walk away from this feeling empowered to prioritize their sleep.
Me too. So for our listeners who are ready to transform their sleep and maybe even unlock some next-level productivity and well-being, where should they even begin?
Start small. Pick one or two of these tips that really resonated with you. Maybe it's the temperature thing, maybe it's the blue light thing, whatever really stood out. And focus on making those a consistent part of your routine.
Great advice. And on that note, I have a challenge for our listeners. After you've tried out some of these tips, I dare you. Keep a little sleep diary for a week, even if it's just a few notes each day. You might be surprised by what you discover. Until next time, happy sleeping.